All right, and we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Christopher Lowry of the Brushfire Mind, and welcome to 2017. We've been off the air for almost a solid 2 months. We haven't done a live show in almost a solid 2 months, and I'll tell that story in a little bit. But first, I kind of want to talk about, before we get into the regular structure of the program, kind of throw it out there. This is what we're doing now. Okay, so we're back on the air live. Obviously, you're looking at us. We're obviously a little out of practice because I'm apparently the only one that forgot to put my bumper up to begin with. So there's my lower third. And now you know who I is. Off the air for a while. We had a little hiccup. We got tagged on a copyright complaint with by Fox News the night we did the election coverage. When it came time for President Trump to give his acceptance speech, we just shut up and watched it. Well, we watched it on Fox News while we were live on the air. Innocent, we just didn't think about it. I had MSNBC, CBS, everybody pulled up, and we watched the Fox feed, and I'm not going to jump up and down about big scary Fox media. They're such assholes. They dinged us on this and whatever. No, because realistically, what happened is there's a little robot that trolls the internet to make sure nobody's infringing on copyrights, and it just made the decision on its own, pulled us, shut down our live feed, cut us off for a little while, and we rebutted. I sent back a counterclaim to YouTube, and I said, hey, if you would kindly ask Fox News to show me the document where President Trump signed over the public domain rights to the president's acceptance speech and show me that it is Fox News and not Mr. Trump that owns this, then I'll be happy to shut up and go away. And, well, as evidenced by the fact that I'm talking to you now, apparently that was sufficient. So we're back. Things are changing. We're doing some new stuff. The website has a brand new face. I've put in a good 40 or 50 hours on that this last week.
And I'll interject there. You all need to go see it because it's working out pretty nice.
Yeah, here it is.
No sense in generating traffic here. He'll just give it to you for free. How do you like that?
Here's no. Pay attention here. So here's the new website. It looks great. I've been working hard to make it look great. There's some new updates coming in the future. And the thing that I want the viewers to pay attention to is this big loudspeaker right here, this big microphone right here. You're going to click on that megaphone when you come to our website and join the conversation. This is where we'll be discussing what the next show is going to be. This is where we're going to be discussing current issues and how we plan to address them as we move forward. Come in here. You see, I'm already logged in, but you can come over here and register an account. Just hit the register button, join the page. It's our own private Facebook. So I want me some trolls. Get me some crazy liberals. Get me some regressive leftists.
Yeah, we need fodder for the ogre.
Bad men, so that they can give me more material. As we're about to address with our, as we move into our segment, the fallacy of the week. Whenever you find yourself debating with one of these madman, regressive leftists, they speak in fallacy. It's not that their logic is faulty. Their logic is intentionally invalid. They cannot speak in cogent argument. So, going forward, as we progress, as we move forward with this show, the basic format for the live weekly show, which is only one of the projects we're doing, we got a bunch of stuff coming up the pipe. Basic format for this show is going to be, we're going to talk about the fallacy of the week. We're going to discuss one major logical fallacy every week and how to recognize it in bad argument so that when you're faced with madness, you can rebut it as being unsound thinking. let's stop insulting our own minds by sinking to the level of engaging the regressivist in rhetorical debate. Let's point out that they think poorly, they think ineffectively, and that their ideas are bad ideas. Free college is a bad idea. The welfare state is a bad idea. Centralized planning is a bad idea. And for each one of these bad ideas, there's not only sound logical argument to support the position, there's history. Nowhere in the history of the world has strong centralized planning led to a good outcome. So this week, we are going to be discussing the fallacy of the week is going to be the straw man fallacy. The straw man, and we picked this one because it's one that happens very often. It's a super common fallacy. It's also called the red herring. Red herrings, the two phrases are used interchangeably. A red herring and a straw man are not the exact same thing, but they're very similar. A straw man fallacy is when you have posited an argument, and your opponent, rather than argue against your argument, treats your argument as if you have made a different argument, and then attempts to defeat that easier argument. At the end of their argument, they declare that they have properly defeated your argument, when in fact they haven't even addressed your argument. They've changed the subject to a different argument that they can defeat. And what's especially amusing is with these regressivists, they often set up straw men and then fail to knock them down. So you can think of your straw man as standing next to the windmill being your actual argument, and Don Quixote just turns with his little piss pot helmet and goes the other way because, ooh, scary. A great example of this is when you start arguing about things like the welfare state. And you say, for example, if you feed the bears, then they'll become dependent on you feeding them and they'll stop hunting. Well, of course, the response is, well, you just hate poor people. Oh, wow. That's actually straw man. It's really obvious, really weak straw man, because that's not the argument that I made. If the argument that I made was, if you feed the bears will become dependent on you and they'll stop hunting for themselves. The argument that the regressivist is going to try and replace that with is that there are some people who cannot do for themselves. Okay, that's a separate issue. That's a completely different thing. When your welfare state is feeding perfectly capable, strong people, you're stealing money from other perfectly capable, strong people. Now,
can I just agree with you that this is one of the biggest straw man examples that you could give, and it slows down the conversation and the debate. Extremely wise men like Benjamin Franklin have said the most humane thing you can do with poverty is make it uncomfortable, so you will have the maximum amount of motivation to get out of poverty. And of course, the argument that you're hit with every time you make any type of argument along those lines, or what you're saying is, well, what about the people that really need the help? What about the people that are mentally ill, or the people that are poor for reasons outside of their control? Well, okay, you know what? We can still help those people, but what we don't do is create this big, large system where it is very easy to keep taking and taking and taking and taking and taking from it. And as soon as you say that, suddenly you hate poor people. This is a fantastic example of the straw man argument.
So I want to tell a little story from recent experience. And I was talking to somebody about this earlier today. I'll leave his name out, even though he's probably watching. How you doing, my bald brother? Anyway, I was explaining to him, let's talk about the Obama phones for just a second. We had lunch together, and he looked at me, he said, so, hey, Lowry, What do you think they have to turn in their phones? And I said, well, January 21st, obviously. Yeah, it was pretty good because his eyes got big for a second. Oh, really? They announced? No, they didn't announce it, brother. But I suspect the more likely occurrence will be that one day the Obama phone holders will just wake up and not have phone service. So, but I told him, personally, I would not actually have a problem with a program like the the Obama phone program, in light of what it is, in stark contrast to what it is. If it were like this, you've lost your job, you've been laid off, you have, in whatever way, become eligible to legitimately use your unemployment insurance. Okay, we're not talking about being unemployed and collecting welfare benefits. We're talking about someone who has had a long track record of employment, has a backdraft of unemployment insurance available to them that covers a period of time, which is paid for by premiums into an insurance program. And they go to collect their unemployment insurance and say, hey, I'm unemployed now. I can't afford to keep my cell phone on or my house phone, whatever. It's okay. While you are collecting unemployment and actively seeking for employment, here's a phone. Here's a basic phone, and I'll even go so far as to say a basic smartphone, because email. So you can use this phone to deal with correspondences, text messages, emails, making and receiving phone calls for the purposes of sending out resumes, making contacts, and seeking employment. But the trick with a program like that is the person has to actively go to the facility. They have to go to the physical office where they pick up the phone. They have to sign for the phone and accept responsibility for its keeping. And they're expected to return the phone when they're no longer eligible for benefits, or they will be billed for the price of the phone at that time. That, I could almost get on board with that program as long as it's done through at least a pseudo privately funded insurance plan. But let me tell you about the Obama phone program. I shit you not. As recently as this last month, I went to a Walmart, and this is a last. They
got the tent set up outside.
I'll go inside the Walmart to buy a pack of pencils on my way to go take a test. And as I'm walking in, a young brother in a nice suit and this young chick standing there with him in a pretty little dress at a folding table covered. Must have had 150 boxes on the table. I shit you not, said, "Hey brother, if you could show me your food stamps or SNAP card or something like some kind of welfare program you're on, we're giving away free smartphones today." Okay, so now we have gone from the existence of a program to offer assistance to the needy. We've gone from that being a thing to there are people who are paid the money that was taken from me at gunpoint to go out and find more people to give more of my taken at gunpoint money to. That's slightly different than offering assistance to the needy.
No, you hate poor people and don't want them to have a phone.
That's right. I hate poor people and don't want them to have a phone. You know what it is, Cameron? I want the poor people off of Facebook, and that's why they shouldn't have phones. So just to recap, the straw man fallacy is one whereby you take the argument that has been advanced by one person and you set up a false argument. You attack a different position.
Something similar, but easier to attack.
Similar, but easier to attack. some of the funniest shit in the world when your brain starts working right and you start thinking like a philosopher and you recognize fallacy when it's used. Some of the most entertaining shit you will ever encounter is when an opponent sets up a straw man and then fails to defeat the straw man as well. So, and that concludes this segment. Somewhere in here, once this is a YouTube recording and not the live stream, I'll throw in a segment title mask, and it'll be prettier. So moving on. In future episodes after that segment, we're going to start doing. We'll be doing current events, mostly critique of the coverage of current events, a feel-good story, and a good guy with a gun story. Now, I almost decided to skip over the good guy with a gun story this week for the same reason that we're going to skip over the current events and the feel-good story for this first episode of the year. Because what we're gonna get into now, we're gonna go into some predictions about the things that are going to happen this year, things that are going to happen because of the election of Donald Trump, the fallout of the utter repudiation of the enemy left, the obvious and aggressive weakening of the mainstream media, and a few other tasty little tidbits. So we're going to dig into some of that. But we are not going to skip the good guy with a gun story this week, even though that's what I was leaning toward originally, to make room for more of these predictions and promises, because we've got two excellent good guy with a gun stories that popped up this week, and so that's what we're gonna close on. Good guy with gun stories will be our closing. So I want to move into predictions, and I have done almost all of the talking at this point. We're 20 and a half minutes into the show. So Cameron, you said that you have two predictions. I'd like to hear them. I'd like to hear you dig into those for a minute.
Let me spread them out, because I've actually thought about it, and I have three predictions. And I'll start with the first one. That's just a ton of fun. Falcons win the Super Bowl, baby, all day long. Rise up. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Well, look, the football, I think, is coming to an end. It's not just the Colin Kaepernick type stuff and all of the other controversies that surround football.
You mean they're disbanding the NFL?
There's a what?
Nothing.
They're suspended the NFL? Well, they're a tax-exempt organization. Of course there's a spin to them.
There you go.
But the culture that the NFL used to promote was one of a certain type of discipline, a certain type of sacrifice. And yes, being willing to be violent to solve your problems. And all of those are such alpha male. And even moving outside of the alpha male paradigm, those are all things that independent people are willing to do. There's an episode of Xena that always stuck with me years and years and years later, where she tells Gabrielle, the second you pick up a weapon, that's when you become a target as well. It goes both ways. So defend yourself, but realize that it always goes both ways. And part of the point she was trying to make is, you are responsible for yourself, and you are responsible for the decisions that you make. So football. Man, you want to talk about something that the regressive left hates? Are you serious? You mean, like do you guys remember the controversy a few years ago with the Saints, where their defensive staff had a bounty gate, and if they took people out of the game, they got like a $50,000 bonus from their coach? And
That didn't offend me as much as the bad English in their catchphrase.
Oh yeah, I hate the who dat we dat. God, I hate it. God, I hate it. God, I hate who dat. I'll tell you who wasn't that this evening. Anyhow, yeah, the Falcons beat the Saints today.
You've lost me now.
The Saints have this obnoxious thing that they say where when they win, they go, "Who dat?" And the answer is "We dat." And it's supposed to be a humorous, whimsical take on New Orleans dialect, and it's obnoxious because they just walk around going, "We dat, we dat, we dat." It's terrible.
Yeah, I gave up on digital audio tape a long time ago. Give up on the DAT. Next.
So somebody else go. Somebody else. What's your prediction for 2016?
I predict Cameron's wrong, and I don't even think Atlanta's going to make it that far. Next.
Ouch.
Come on, Steve. What do you think's going to happen this coming year?
I think what's going to happen, honestly, I haven't given a lot of thought to actual predictions, just in the same way I don't give a lot of credence to resolutions. If it takes a new year for you to all of a sudden become clairvoyant and driven, you're doing it wrong. But what I will say is, knowing what's coming this year, I predict we're going to have a whole lot of jumped off the cliff leftists that realize a whole lot more about how realistic a President Trump could be than even I believed he could be. Does that make sense? I think we're going to have a lot of people who have been crying wolf and diving for cover and everything else that are suddenly going to realize, oh yeah, that's not what he really said. I just think we're going to see a whole lot more moderate society, so to speak, than what we've had to deal with these last couple of years.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to counter that. I think I predicted Steve will be wrong in all this. People are not going to suddenly mature and get over the fact that Donald Trump became president. Next.
Yeah.
Sir.
Let me go ahead and jump on that for just a second. We're going to see with Trump, we're going to see a lot of stuff similar to what we saw with Obama. As things progress, it's not going to matter how well Trump does. It's not going to matter what the numbers say. He could be the best president ever. And that statement could be strictly provable by all of the numbers. And the enemy left is still going to call him Hitler. They're still going to say he's a monster. They're going to refuse to acknowledge it, just like they have steadily claimed that Barack Obama has fixed the economy. That I love this one. That that Obamacare has lowered the cost of health insurance across. No, it abso-fucking-lutely hasn't. The cost of health insurance across the United States has increased on average more than 100% per family per year.
Can I just tell you myself, just my family, that everything about my health insurance has doubled or tripled. I mean, like my annual premiums and my deductibles and my copays and all of that. It just keeps going up and keeps going up. I mean, sort of this thing that I said would probably happen if we passed Obamacare. But, I hated poor people and didn't want them to have insurance.
My wife's in a rather large corporation, and of course they have a large medical plan, so to speak. And even because of the guidelines, the minimums, the things that Obamacare has required, we have changed complete plan profiles every year for the last 3, trying to find a way to keep the cost manageable.
I mean, man, I don't have a choice. I have to have the maximum coverage I can for the kids. It's like, oh, well, that'll be a $7,500 deductible. Oh, screw you. If I had $7,000 laying around, I might not need health insurance.
Yeah, you just pay for everything outright and everybody's cool, right?
No,
yeah, exactly.
$7,000 isn't a lot of money.
No, not anymore.
Unless it's the cost of a single item. If $7,000 is the revenue that's at your disposal, your personal purchasing power, it's practically nothing. If it's the cost of an individual item, it's all the money in the world.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about lawmakers who are paid in excess of 6 figures, and that's just their official public salary.
Forever, yes.
Then, yeah, forever.
Go to Congress and make $150,000 a year. Leave Congress with $10 million in the bank.
Right. So
Okay.
we're talking about people making decisions. Okay. I've said this before. I'll say it again, and then I'm going to make it. And then I'm going to drop my predictions. Obamacare is the product of one massive straw man play. It's appropriate that we did the straw man now, and here's why. Obamacare was a straw man maneuver, not a straw man argument, but a straw man maneuver. President Obama, when he ran in 2008, one of his biggest promises was that he was going to reform the health care industry. Let me say that again. He promised to reform the health care industry. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, or what we have come to call Obamacare, the ACA, is an insurance law. It has nothing to do with the health care industry. That's like it's the same as arguing that the car insurance business and the auto manufacturer business are the same.
That's a very good point. I'm glad that folded into this subject so nicely.
I'm going to have to agree.
They're only tangentially related.
Mm-hmm.
The only relationship between the car insurance industry and the auto manufacturing industry is that the cost of a new car or the cost of a used car has an effect on the cost of an insurance policy. That's it. There is no other bridge between those parallels.
Oh, there's a second one now. Car insurance is compulsory, and so is health insurance.
There you go.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Car insurance, compulsory car insurance is acceptable under the circumstances. And I'll explain, but let me finish this other line of thought first. So, with healthcare reform, what we got is a bunch of lawyers got together to fix the healthcare business, and they did it by writing an insurance law. So what we have is we walked into a restaurant and asked an astronaut to build us a sandcastle.
Yep.
I gave 2 wrenches and a pair of washers to a laundromat and expected a fried banana sandwich.
That might be a little bit of a stretch, but
a bunch of lawyers, not a bunch of doctors or a bunch of insurance agents or a bunch of insurance agencies or brokers. No, a bunch of lawyers got together to reform healthcare, and they did it by writing an insurance law. Now, let me go ahead and tackle the difference between compulsory car insurance and compulsory health insurance.
What's your prediction about that?
I've got a prediction about Obamacare. There's no prediction revolving around the car insurance thing, but here we go. So, car insurance. You drive your car on state or federal funded roads. So we pay tax money. Yeah, we're going to run a little long, Steve. I see you.
It's good. You keep talking. Just acknowledge that you saw it. We're good.
Got it. Okay. So we pay tax money. The roads are federally or state funded, right? You do not have to have car insurance. You don't even have to have car insurance or pay for a registration tag just because you own a car. If you own a car and you own a farm, for example, and you only drive that car that you own on your private property, the law cannot compel you to purchase insurance to cover that car or even to pay an ad valorem tax for your ownership of that car. They can, however, compel you to comply with their requirements as prerequisites for your use of the publicly funded roads.
Mm-hmm.
So, car insurance is mandatory if you want to blah. Health insurance is different in this way, because under the Obamacare regulations, if you breathe, you must purchase health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It even goes further. If you breathe, you must purchase health insurance that covers the cost of having a child, that covers maternity care, that covers an OBGYN. Even if you're a dude. If you breathe, you must pay for an annual prostate exam, even if you're a 22-year-old woman. If you breathe, you must pay for an annual mammogram, even if you are a woman in your 70s who has had a double mastectomy from breast cancer in the past, and the idea of going to have a mammogram is psychologically traumatic. You have to pay for one every year. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get off of that soapbox. I think I've beat that horse enough tonight.
To sum that up, the easiest way to define where that comes, if you don't mind me taking a second to say it, Jonathan Gruber, the guy who's mainly credited / blamed with framing this entire Obamacare thing, had said
the American people guy.
Pay for the people who don't pay for this is to make everybody be a part, so the people who don't ever use it pay for the people that do.
Yes. Now here's my prediction.
Not socialism.
Now here's my prediction. Donald Trump is not going to dismantle Obamacare in the way that he promised he would.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. It's going to fall apart before he has the opportunity. You guys out there that haven't bought your health insurance that you're required by law to buy before the end of January, and I'm talking to you customers because I'm the insurance guy. I'm the biggest insurance guy, and I'm the biggest insurance guy in Conyers, Georgia. I got Neil Lang by probably 200 pounds. Love you, Neil. Love you. Hope your heart's doing good, brother.
That was good.
It's kind of a tired joke. I've been telling it at every fucking Chamber of Commerce meeting for a year. I'm Christopher Lowry. I'm the biggest. I got Neil by 200 pounds. And people buy insurance from me. But anyway, this year we saw most of the insurance companies fail to return to markets that they were already serving. In the state of Georgia, every single insurance company except for Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, Alliant, Am Better Best, Peach State, and
somebody else knows ever heard.
And Kaiser Permanente. All but those 5 quit the state. Of those 5, frankly, I don't know enough about Alliant to do business with them. I know enough about Am Better Peach State that I refuse to take a contract with them because they are a fly-by-night fucking scam. Humana pulled out of almost every zip code on the book, and I used to do a lot of business for those guys, so I had to rewrite everybody from there. Kaiser limits you to their facilities, and they just don't have the market penetration in the state of Georgia that they have in other states. So Kaiser's a great option for certain people who live close to the larger Kaiser facilities, and that's great. Blue Cross basically jumped to the top of my list, and that's who I wrote everybody with. So Merry Christmas, Blue Cross. There's your free plug. You got most of my business this year. Congratulations.
Well, there's the other side of it is this is how monopolies only exist because government requires them.
Correct. No. More correctly, monopolies can only exist if a government enforces them.
There you go.
And
There you
that,
go.
ladies and gentlemen, is a whole nother show. That's its own show.
Hey,
Oh,
speaking of monopolies, can I give you one of my predictions?
Yeah, why not?
yeah, get it.
Yeah. The Disney is going to put out a little movie this year, Star Wars Episode 8. And I am going to predict that just like the last one was basically a new hope for a modern obvious with for a modern audience with likable characters. Um, Episode 8 will be The Empire Strikes Back for a modern audience with likable characters and will end on a cliffhanger similar to how The Empire Strikes Back ended on a cliffhanger. And it won't be some BS cliffhanger that you get on some sitcom to make sure you come back and watch next season. Like that's necessary. No, no, no. This will be just like The Empire Strikes Back. The good guys are going to suffer a devastating blow in the next movie.
Now, as one that hasn't seen Rogue One yet, all I can say is I'd rather see it crash before I have to deal with that. I'm of an age where I saw Empire Strikes Back first run in the theater and is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. The fact
Because
that
it's a good movie.
to go to that to make money makes me lose all faith in the creativity of Disney, the biggest creative engine outside of Pixar on the planet.
I have seen Rogue One, and I didn't think that it was this big, amazing thing that people are saying that it is. The first half of the movie is kind of slow and confusing. It just is. The second half of the movie, when they actually begin to steal the Death Star plans and it turns into the Dirty Dozen in space, is actually pretty darn good. It really is.
That must be the part everybody's bragging about then, because a lot of people have said it's the best one in years.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no, no. I mean, it ends amazingly fantastic action, and it feels like a Star Wars movie. It really does.
That's a
Um, but the beginning is kind of slow and confusing. And I'm a Star Wars nerd, and I'm like, yay, we're gonna see all these Star Wars planets. And then when we actually start to see it, I'm like, no, this is just boring. Just go steal the Death Star plans. That's what this movie's about. So. Um, but I don't even think that it's necessarily that a flaw in their creativity. A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie, was just a retelling of the hero's journey, but it was well done and it had characters that we liked. So we accepted it and it became a part of our culture. And I think it is okay to do that again. And Star Wars, for better or worse, is this big, huge universe, but it's also this really narrow universe.
yeah.
If you don't have lightsabers and TIE fighters and light speed hyper jumps, it's not really Star Wars. So, it's cool that you get to fly all over the whole universe, but you still have to have the TIE fighters and the lightsabers and the cheesy dialogue, or it's not Star Wars.
The joy of branding, yes.
And then one more prediction, and it is this one is much more serious than the last two. I think it will not last an entire year before the left becomes absolutely obstinate. I think that I'm almost of the opposite mind frame that Steve will be in. I think that instead of people realizing, oh, this is not so bad. Oh man, Donald Trump is president and suddenly we have 4% economic growth. This is awesome. That is not going to be how these people think, how they see the world. They will further entrench. They will say that people like you and I or whoever the man is will be getting rich while all the poor people get left behind. In fact, to tie it even back to the straw man argument, it will just become fodder for their latest round of straw man arguments. When Obamacare fails and we don't want to throw more money at it, we don't want poor people to have health insurance. And then when certain welfare programs have to go, because let's face it, everything, including in the military, in the federal budget has to have cuts. We can pick what we cut now, or we can be forced to cut certain things later, but it's going to happen. So I think when that happens, it's going to be terrible. It is actually going to further the schism in our society.
It may, simply because when you think of what it took to sequester the funds in government and shut down certain agencies, the only thing that got sequestered for an $800 million cut were all the things that would affect the greatest number of people the most rapidly it could to make big news about it. The things that would have to do to trim things back into budget, the stuff that would cut that nobody cares about, doesn't fuel anybody's argument. It just gets the job done, which I'd like to see. The side of it, I think you touched on what I'm expecting to see come out of this, and what are going to shoot holes in the talking points are going to be the unemployment rate, are going to be the tax rates dropping while the net income for government increases. I'm not comparing Trump, and I don't think I ever would, to Reagan, but I think it's going to be Reagan-esque, that by allowing businesses to do what they do, I think we will see markets increase, tax revenue increase, and unemployment decrease. That's kind of what I'm thinking to see out of Trump, but that's the part that I'm thinking everyone on the left is not seeing at all. Somehow they think that the government, will stick with the Star Wars analogy, the government's just going to turn into the empire, and everybody's just going to be forced labor, and no one's going to make any money, and everyone will live on Tatooine and squalor.
Well, there's a concept that Chris has brought up before, that the left plants these sort of mental bombs, or these moral bombs in our law. And the example he always gives is that DOMA was signed by Clinton so that one day in 10 years or 20 years, another Democrat could come along later and be the champion of needing to get rid of DOMA, but not just get rid of DOMA, but go ahead and swing the pendulum all the way in the other direction. And now suddenly we have federalized gay marriage. And I actually think there are certain things, like our interest rates have been set to 0 for, I don't even know how long anymore. It doesn't even make sense. It's all paper money. Like the stock market hit 20,000 points. I mean, we all know that that's going to crash, right? You got a 401k. I wouldn't look at it this year. I'm not planning on looking at mine this year, because at some point, a few thousand points of that are going to have to come off, because you can't have almost 100 million people not working.
That's why I trade my own money. I don't let nobody else trade my money for me.
Yeah, but when they give you a free match, that's
that's free money.
That's free money. Yes.
Yeah, in fairness, being completely self-employed, nobody's offering me a match. I only get to trade my money. If I was also trading somebody else's money, I might let them trade some of my money if they were, trading their money with it.
I mean, that's really how I feel about it. That's
it. I mean, if somebody's got a 25% match, you're already getting a 25% increase on your investment. Just be careful you're not losing more than you're gaining.
And the math on that's a little trickier than that, but
roughly speaking,
you're essentially right.
This isn't Clark Howard's show. We'll let him deal with that.
Oh
no.
I like Clark Howard on some stuff.
Oh, on most things. He's
brilliant on clipping coupons and the like. But when he starts talking about insurance products and investment strategies,
point taken.
He's you're not going to get a $500,000 policy for $17 a month, people.
Oh my, okay.
That's not going to happen.
I'm just gonna jump off the track for a minute and tell that story. I'm driving down the road. This was months ago. But I'm driving down the road. I'm listening to Clark Howard because I love Clark Howard on most stuff. But this chick calls in and she says, "Hey, this insurance agent told me he could sell me an insurance policy, a life insurance policy, and it'd be like $120 a month." And Clark Howard said, "That's all the information. That's it. That's 100%. That's all the information. An insurance agent told me he could sell me a life insurance policy for $120 a month." And Clark says, "Well, how old are you?" And she was like 32 or 33. He said, "No, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't be paying more than $17 a month for a life insurance policy." And I'm just screaming at at the wheel. It's like, oh my God, what? That's like,
yeah, what if she's diabetic and 250 pounds?
$40,000. Oh no, you shouldn't pay more than $10,000 for a car. Maybe I'm shopping for a higher end pickup truck. Maybe I'm what? I don't know if this chick is a smoker. I don't know if she's got a history of cancer. I don't know if she's asking for $100,000 20-year term or a freaking $2 million whole life policy. The blanket statement you shouldn't pay more than $17. You don't know how much money she makes. You don't know how much insurance she needs to replace her income for a loved one, or you don't know shit.
That's right. No, seriously.
I mean, you cannot say it's bad advice. So
that's why the Clark Howard show has that disclaimer.
Clark Howard starts talking about life insurance. Just go ahead and change the channel. You're better off looking for that advice from the Young Turks.
Ouch.
Now,
ouch. I do think though that tying it back to the straw man fallacy that. As much as we are going to enjoy parts of this, the regressive left is going to regroup, and they are going to do what they did. They took the very real economic growth that happened under Reagan and perverted it into something that it's not. And then they took the economic growth that happened under Clinton and then, gave Clinton the credit where they didn't give it to Reagan in the past. And then when the same thing happens under Trump, it's not going to be without bumps in the road. And please believe it will only be a matter of time before the stock market peels off a couple thousand points. And then, the libs say, see, look at Trump. He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. This didn't happen once under Obama. And of course not. It didn't happen under Obama. We basically pumped unlimited money into the bond market and let Wall Street trade it back and forth.
Right. Now, and let me jump on that too. Steve, you mentioned some stuff that it's going to happen. Cameron, you mentioned some stuff that's going to happen. It's all going to be it's going to be mislabeled, misread, and mispresented by the left as far as stuff Trump does. Another one we're going to see is about June or July. We're going to see the interest rates triple. And as soon as that happens, the left is going to scream about how the real estate monster is trying to steal your money by raising the price of your house. Because they know that their audience doesn't have money in checking accounts or CDs. They know that these people are not investing money. And so they're completely uninvested in the idea of a return on investment. They don't even understand what that is. Most Americans right now, they see low interest rates and, it's the right time to buy a house. Well, yes, it is the right time to buy a house. But here's the problem with that. It's also the wrong time for every other thing that you could ever hope to make you wealthy and secure. There is no other aspect of your financial life separate from the acquisition of a home mortgage that is not negatively impacted by artificially depressed interest rates. So in June or July, when the interest rates triple, the left is going to scream that flipping Trump has ruined the economy. They're going to completely ignore the fact that at the same time, we'll be projecting 2017 GDP growth of 5.7%. They're just going to completely sweep that under the rug.
Who's predicting 5.7?
Yes, 5.7.
You are, or somebody like?
No, I am. I'm calling that right now.
Well, I'm willing to
like on a countdown banner because holy shit.
Yeah, dude, 5 points. I'd be willing to give you 3.5 to 4.
What are we at now? 2.5?
No.
Dude.
We're closer to 1.6.
Yeah, every time.
I see a range of numbers, so.
Well, those numbers always get revised downward. I don't think Obama has a sustained 2% year-long growth during his entire presidency.
Obama has not been over 2% at any point in his presidency. He's the only president in the history that has never had 3% or higher.
Dude, if we hit 5%, 5.7% for 2017, I'll buy your beer for a year.
Yeah, like I'm gonna have to agree with Steve on this one. There are certain shocks in our economy that have not yet been dealt with, and I think that Trump is incredibly well equipped to deal with them. But I think that his enemies, both in the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, are deliberately going to drag some of these things out to do maximum PR damage, to do as many ugly little tricks where they close the World War II memorial to the veterans that have bust in for the weekend, and we're like, air traffic controllers don't get their their paychecks and so forth and so on, and people's social security checks get delayed unnecessarily. Yeah, but government still functions. Like there's still gas in the tanks in the army, and there is going to be a lot of that to swim through. I would not be surprised if somewhere in that first 4-year span we have a 5% year. I'll give you that. That could happen.
Composite, yeah, maybe.
But I don't know about that first year, because there is just such, part of this is going to be delayed by the fact that Trump has to unfuck some of it.
Yeah.
Now, let me be clear. Let me reiterate what I'm predicting. I'm not just saying that 2017 will have been 5.7%. I'm saying that in July of this year, professional projections, government review board projections, and professional economist projections will be that we will see over 5%.
Dude, this country would love you to be right.
Yeah, Chris,
guys, just to be clear, the way this works is in July, when I am right, we're going to pull the clip where I said this, predicting this now, and we're going to tout that and remind the whole audience that's watching our show that I said this. And
Chris,
if in July it turns out that I'm wrong, we're just not going to mention it.
No, that's not the way. I beer for a year.
I tell you what, though, Chris,
we are capitalists. We want our gain out of this too.
I tell you what, Chris, you're anywhere close to right, and I'll cook you a 1-pound steak. I'll marinate that sucker for 72 hours beforehand, and cook you a 1-pound steak.
If it's above 5% in July when they announce the numbers, he will bring the steak. I will bring the beer. We'll broadcast live your victory party.
Just to be clear, it cannot actually be 5% in July. In July, it will be.
No, I'm with you. If they're projecting 5% by the end of 2017,
2017 will have been.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's anywhere close, if it's on track,
steak, I'll bring beer.
Yeah, if it's anywhere close, if it's on track, I'm game. We will have a good idea if this is going to work or not by July.
Yep.
And I don't doubt that it will work. Don't misunderstand. I'm actually really optimistic once there's no longer a Black liberation theology Marxist in the White House. I think it will be amazing, some of the things that just sort of work themselves out. But at the same time,
not in the way we get a positive result. You can't possibly be saying that out loud.
I know, right? If people are allowed to just do what they feel like they should do.
Yeah.
All right. So those are our predictions for 2017 going into the new year.
And we may have more coming. This is not binding.
Well, I'm going to put those predictions on the calendar.
Well, those you are, but I might have more next week. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
I think those should go on the website.
Yeah.
I think the predictions should go on the website.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Guess what? We've only got a month to wait to find out if I'm wrong about the Falcons. Less if Steve's prediction is correct and they lose in the first round of the playoffs.
So
I've got the big calendar for a year on that.
I've got the big calendar.
Yeah.
We'll be writing down predictions. Anytime we make a prediction about the future going forward, I'm going to write it down on the big calendar here. And after the show, I'll be putting the predictions we made here on the calendar. If we predicted, like my prediction, that in July they'll there will be projections of 5.7% GDP growth. I'll put that on the calendar for us to report on the progress of that prediction on July 1st. No, at the end of July, because it won't be on the 1st that those predictions are.
No, probably more toward the third week, yeah.
And yeah, so there'll be that. Next week, I want to have a conversation about Obama's last couple of weeks and the obvious sabotage. He's been going out of his way to sabotage American relations worldwide for the last few weeks.
I made a comment about Trump basically securing a peace with Russia that Clinton couldn't have. Was basically, without naming names, someone on Facebook wanted an eye roll meme to throw up when I mentioned about Russia having an aggressive posture toward us if Clinton was president. I'd just like to say this is the second move made to make Russia nut up against the United States by the president of the United States.
Can I just really piggyback on top of that and actually throw it back to George W. Bush for a minute, that had Vladimir Putin out to the presidential ranch. Camp David is where it was. And after Putin visited Bush at Camp David, Bush described Putin as a friend. And did Putin invade Crimea? And did Putin vote alongside Iran in the UN? No, none of that happened. None of that happened. And then Obama came along, and all of a sudden, now Putin invades Crimea, and now Putin it does the things that he does with the UN, siding with Iran and Syria and so forth and so on. The fact that Trump is describing Putin as a potential friend or whatever, I think there is a certain thing among alpha males where they recognize it in one another. And yeah, I'm totally suggesting that Barack Obama is not an alpha male. That is part of this. Yes.
No, he's a squishy beta cuckold.
Perish the thought.
But it's sort of like if Steven Seagal and Jackie Chan were in the same room, they would never need to be like, no, Jackie can fight, nah, Steven could fight. No, you wouldn't have to say it. They would already know what the score was long before the first punch was ever thrown, and that is the dynamic that Trump is going to have with Putin. He is not trying to be Vladimir Putin's friend because he has some weird admiration or anything like that. It's not it at all. Putin just understands that Trump is who he is, and Trump understands that Putin also is who he is, and they can meet each other in those terms or they cannot. And at the same time, I mean, Barack's the guy we've got on the hot mic going, hey, after the election, tell Vlad, just chill out. Just after the election. It's cool. It's cool.
Oh, but that'll be conspiracy. No matter how many videos you can bring up of that hot mic, that'll be you trying to slander his legacy. I remember it. I remember it really well.
Yeah, that and the Benghazi thing. None of that was conveniently timed at all.
Yeah. All right.
Good guy with a gun.
Resident slave. Whip cracker, not slave driver, because, well, you guys don't work for me. Let's move on to something cheerful.
Good guy with a gun.
We mean bad guys getting shot.
Because, Chris, life's number one priority is
killing bad guys
and sparing the innocent.
Yes. Okay, so what Steve's referring to is the rule by which I live my life. Rather than 10 commandments, I conduct myself by a single rule: to spare the innocent and only they. I'll do an entire block of instruction on what that means at another time. It's a heavily packed philosophical statement. But the rebuttal that I generally hear is the idea that questions who decides who's innocent. It's all contained in the statement. Spare the innocent and only they. It is when you begin to engage in the deliberate initiation of force against innocent people that you cease to be protected from the wrath of good men.
Wow.
I hold this rule to be so sacred that I would say if a man were to pass by an alley where a woman cried rape, and he did not only intervene and prevent the rape from continuing, but send the rapist to hell with a gaping, sucking chest wound. If you fail to destroy the monster, you are as guilty of the sin as he.
Right on.
That said, good guy with a gun segment. Now, there was a good story that happened in Cameron's backyard, and he missed it because he was distracted by a probably better story that happened a little further away from us, but still in the state of good old Georgia. So I'm going to ask Steve, will you hop on first and tell the story? Tell us about the one that happened near Cameron's house, and then Cameron, tell us about the Hummer.
I'd be glad to, because I'd heard about this one before Chris had heard about the other, but we were delayed a little bit with our broadcast and our formatting and things. So we're a conservative channel. I'm a libertarian and a conservative channel. Somebody quick, blow me up on YouTube for quoting Fox 5, but Fox 5 Atlanta are the people that I'm pulling this story from because it's the first one that came up in my search engine. But a truly reported story is a truly reported story, so I'm going ahead. Cartersville, Georgia, December 27th, 2016. Police said when masked men walked into a convenience store in Cartersville and started firing, the clerk pulled out his gun and shot back. One of the masked men was hit and killed, and police are still looking for 2 others. Now, this was a while ago. I think they have now caught everybody involved. I did not get enough mental lead time to catch up on that. 5 people in the back of the store playing video games before the shooting. Saw 2 men walk in wearing masks, and they were armed. According to James, he jumped in the back room, tried to shut the door, but one of the men tried to push it open from the other side. So no, they didn't just come in and demand money. They came in hunting. We were about a foot apart, looking one another in the eyes, knew he was fixing to start shooting, or I thought he was, so I reached around the door and shot him, James told Fox 5. When your life is threatened, you sense a threat, you have a right to defend yourself, yes? James said he fired 3 shots. The intruders fired 4. Police said one of the masked men was hit. When investigators arrived, the man was found dead just outside the front door of the store. Other man took off with a cash register, getaway driver, and a dark-colored SUV, temp tags, blah, blah. And like I said,
that's a DRT, yes!
The fact being, that fella who was carrying in a convenience store, and I didn't track down which store, I'm not going to name all that, throw that out there. But whether or not that was against company policy, fellow was carrying a gun, protected other innocents in the back of the shop who didn't even really know what was going on successfully, and probably stopped a great mass murder by firearm that would be used by the left to try to take away his right to do exactly what he did.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a DRT. That one of the bad guys was dead right there.
Right there. Yes, sir.
You know what's great about DRTs? Open and shut. What happened? Oh, I tried to stick up a liquor store and got shot in the face. Dead right there.
And in most states now, I don't know that it's a blanket thing, but most states now, if you have an accomplice in a murder and someone on site dies, the accomplice is guilty of murder. Because if he hadn't helped, the situation may not have escalated and he wouldn't have died. Which means anybody trying to do that was guilty of trying to murder other people in that gas station.
Yeah, and
wow, thanks.
Before Cameron, before you jump on to tell us the our other good guy with the gun story, let me say this, because I have worked for companies against whose policy it was for me to carry my firearm while I was at work. It's one of the reasons I'm self-employed now. I set my own company policies. So during this year, part of what the Brushfire Mind is here to do. It is not the majority, but rather a tireless and irate minority spreading brush fires of liberty in the minds of men. Samuel Adams. That's our mission. That's what we are here to do. We are here to talk about liberty, and not just talk about it. We're going to get out and do some stuff. One of the things I want to do, one of the things that I really is near and dear to my heart, want to get after. I want you viewers to get on the website, sign up, join the conversation. It's like we have our own private Facebook page there. Now, this is not so that we can be locked into an echo chamber, and not be exposed to new ideas. It's so that we can keep the ideas that we want to talk about in one place, because you better believe me, I'm going to be throwing those ideas out on Facebook to get the enemy left's opinion on it. But think of the Brushfire Mind conversation page not so much as a place to interrogate new ideas, but as a place to record the pieces of the ideas that are part of the interrogation. And one of the things that I want us to interrogate are companies against whose policy it is for the employees to carry firearms. If the only reason that a company can cite for violating the natural liberties of an American citizen is that they believe that it's a safety issue, when all evidence to the contrary is readily available, then those companies need to be called out. And we'll start publishing a list. Don't buy coffee at Starbucks because they don't let the employees buy a gun. Stay away from, if you can't carry a weapon while you're at work, fuck that company. We need to start showing up and shutting down these monsters who use their wage slaves to suppress liberty.
And us being a company based out of the state of Georgia, all things considered, there are several sites that all have the same idea, and you can go to things like georgiacarry.org, Georgia Gun Owners website, things like that. I think it's Georgia Carry that has even a little template, if you wanted, of a business card thing that says no carry equals no money. If you don't recognize the fact I have a right to do things when I'm not threatening you, then I'm not going to spend my money with you. But rather than just boycotting you, here's going to be a reason you're not making money off me. And you leave them the card and leave politely.
This is something that I might actually deviate on. I think if a business owner wants to promote a gun-free environment, I think that's kind of stupid. I agree with that part of it. But I think as soon as you take doing business off the table with somebody just because of part of how they want to do their business arbitrarily, not that you're okay to not do business with people that do unethical things. That's different. But as soon as you say, oh, well, basically you voted for Obama, so I refuse to buy things at your shop, or whatever the version is, I think you move into a territory where the left dominates the ability to really bully people out of the public square. And I think if we engage in this behavior, we're going to invite a retaliation that we will not be able to compete with, because despite the fact that secretly we're the meritocratists and we are not the racists and the sexists and the bigots and the homophobes or whatever, that's what we'll get painted as very, very quickly.
We'll let them, but understand the truth in that is we are actually defending inherent rights outlined in the Constitution that they operate under in a country.
Okay. I'm going to cut it off right. I'm going to cut it off right there. I want to say a few more things about this real quick, but we need to get back on track with the good guy with the gun.
Absolutely.
Let me say this about the conversation we were just having, though, real quick. So, with respect to the whole gay birthday or gay wedding cake fiasco, Cameron, you're not incorrect. I don't think you're incorrect, and I don't entirely disagree with you on that. But I would like to point out that what we're advocating, if we say don't spend your money with companies that won't let with gun-free zones, don't spend your money in gun-free zones. What we're advocating there is the solution that we offered to the left in the cases of the gay wedding cakes. The correct answer was instead of coming at them as terrorists, instead of coming in and saying, we want you to bake a gay wedding cake or we're going to tell social media to bankrupt you. Instead of doing that, the individual people who had a problem with that should have taken their business to another place. And in fairness, that's what I'm saying. Take your business where you like to do business. But at the same time, you brought up some excellent points, Cameron. So I don't want to continue this discussion right now. We have the last good guy with a gun story, which is the one you're about to tell.
Absolutely.
But this is a conversation. This is an idea that we need to interrogate offline later and maybe do a special about our program segment about.
Yeah.
So, good guy with a gun. The thing in Cartersville, I hadn't even heard about it until just before we came on the air. Thanks, guys. Thanks for scooping me in my own backyard. To be fair, I don't live in Cartersville, but Cartersville is it's not too far away from where I do live. So, my good guy with a gun story was actually one I heard stuck in traffic, picking my children up from my mother, who spent a few days after the Christmas holiday with my mom. A 3-hour round trip, took a fantastic 6.5 hours. It was amazing. Atlanta traffic is just awesome sometimes. So I heard this story on the radio over and over again. And it was kind of amazing to hear it develop. And it was the good guy with a gun story. So a Hummer was involved in a hit and run accident. And because it was a hit and run, it kept going. So then it was involved in another one and another one and another one and another one. And oh yeah, I need the other hand because it was involved in another one and another one and another one. And these are just the 8 that they know about. Okay, there could be more that just have not been reported yet. But this Hummer, a Hummer hit and run 8 separate times. The police finally had the driver cornered at an intersection. And so he jumps out of his Hummer and runs over to a white Lamborghini and tries to carjack it. And the driver of the white Lamborghini shoots the man in the stomach almost simultaneously with the police tasing the suspect. So
that's beautiful.
So that was your good guy with a gun. And I do want to point out that this guy was basically a monster. He was the equivalent. He was in the equivalent of a tank and was barreling down the road, destructively hurting people. And what stopped it? But good guy with a gun.
Right on. Yep. I love those for feel-good endings right there.
Yeah, the only thing wrong with it, and this might not be politically correct, but I'll go ahead and say it, it doesn't end in a DRT.
Yeah, well, no situation is perfect.
Well, guys, that
was really that beautiful, wasn't it?
Really works for me. That's gonna be our final note for this week. We've had several viewers tonight. We've had 2 of you that have just stuck with us. So I imagine of those 2, one's a couple that I had dinner with tonight. And thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys next week. Much love. And as is our custom, we will end the show on this note. We are the Brushfire Mind. Because if you build a man a fire, you will keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.